talk about the public school system again in Switzerland. Now, whenever I posted some videos in the past and I got loads of comments on them, one of the things was, integration, you're making your friends, you're fitting in, you're building your community as you're going for public school. And granted, you have a point, right? And whenever I was saying or mentioning other forms of education, I usually get back that comment, yeah, but how are you building your, friendships, kind of like that, and that you got to be the odd one out and you got to be like an outsider. And here's something from my own personal experience, also observing Swiss locals. And please, if you're Swiss local, tell me if I'm wrong or not. Again, these are just observations, and I've also discussed them with other immigrants. But it's interesting because, a few years ago, I was in college and I studied abroad in South Korea. And so I've lived in Seoul for like six to 9 months. And while we were there, obviously, whoever did a study abroad before probably knows you're bonding right away with other, study abroad students because you're in international housing. There's, obviously local Korean housing, and there was international housing. And so they threw us all together, and there were so many nationalities. I couldn't even tell you, probably every nationality almost in this world, or let's say, like at least 2/3 of it. And I found it so interesting because especially also then when you are coming from Europe, a lot of us were just like bonding right away with each other, right? So my friendship group consisted also of Italians and French nationals and Mexican, then of course US American, Canadian, and so on, right? The list goes on and on. And there were about 3 Swiss students that I've met throughout like that study abroad experience. And one Swiss student came from the Swiss German part, and the other 2 were from the French speaking part. And two ladies, the girls that came from the French part, they just kind of stuck with each other the entire time, right? Again, all of them, just so you know, super nice, really, really sweet and nice. However, there was this layer of, it was almost like, I don't know if that's a word, but unapproachability. For all of us. And so the poor guy who was, I felt like, from my observation, from the Swiss German part, he never found, in German, the word would be Anschluss. So they kind of like never found their group of people, or just like kind of could mix and intermingle with all of us coming from different parts of the world. And it was something that was so striking, and that we were even discussing in the group because we didn't get it. Because we also thought, of course they were coming from Europe. So, most of the time, right, the Americans usually, right, of course, we're sticking together because that's a whole other culture on its own. But, all of the different countries from Europe, usually we loved having debates about, European history and blah, 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 and whatever not. But we all hung out with each other. And just the only nationality that kind of was always off on their own were the Swiss. And it's just an observation. And I'm not sure if anyone else had that observation before. If you met a Swiss person out in the world, unless they were traveling, of course, with their own Swiss friends. But did you feel like they had an easy time kind of integrating? Because, of course, when I post a question about Swiss public schools, the main thing that I get, hey, you have to integrate. And I feel like I have sometimes that feeling that you guys, just an observation again, love that word. But I find it so odd because even though one piece of me and one part of me admires those lifelong friendships that you have since kindergarten and also like primary school and whatever not. And that's amazing. And these deep bonds and roots that you have, right? That when I talked to from the last 5 years of living here from a lot of locals. However, how come then, I feel like especially nowadays and how the world is changing, and I'm genuinely curious, how come it seems like a lot of Swiss locals have a harder time making friends or opening up to people from all around the world? And I'm really curious about that. I'm not like, criticizing or anything like that. I am mainly, that's my background. I studied international cultural studies, anthropology. I love to observe. I love to understand. And so that's why I posed the question. Let me know in the comments, because that's, of course, something I think about it as well. If I should send my kids to Swiss public school, and my observations with meeting Swiss people throughout my life. And yeah, just what I've seen. Is this something that can be changed? Is this maybe just an odd personal thing that I've witnessed? Maybe it was like some weird, maybe more weird Swiss people. And by the way, they did go to public school. They did not go to private school, in case you're coming at me in the comments. So yeah, let me know. I'm curious.